Original canceled. WoW expansion. Ogres playable and pirates. Oh, okay. This sounds interesting. Pirates and ogres. Yeah, sounds like a rap song or something. Anyway, let's check this out. Let's see what Doran, the most epic of them all truth tellers, has to say.
So apparently playable trolls weren't supposed to be a thing, and they were literally added to World of Warcraft last minute, and the original planned race were the ogres that Blizzard wasn't able to get on time, so they just ultimately removed them. Furthermore, we learned about the first WoW expansion that was supposed to be a pirate-based one that was ultimately scrapped and was switched to the Burning Crusade. Now, why this WoW veteran developer new interview is really interesting is that Blizzard has actually brought most of those craft features into the game over time, from Aziatal to the Dragon Isles to the Pandaren, which means we might be seeing some of these returning either on retail or possibly
Classic
even in
Plus.
class. So
maybe,
what was WoW supposed to look like? Because initially it was obviously quite different. I've been using this wallet for nearly 3 months now, and it is amazing.
There you go. Get yourself a wallet,
cards
boys.
go like this, and you even got this little tracker that you can find your wallet if you lose it through the app. There's so many styles you can choose from. You got premium leather, you got carbon fiber, aluminum, and they also have key cases that can also be fitted with the tracker.
I want a gator skin.
Lose your keys as
I want
well.
a gator skin.
Best of all, these wallets are super affordable, and they're even more affordable if you use my code DORON, and you can get up to 25% off your wallets or key cases. So check out Extra. So just a few days back, we got a really interesting interview with one of the main guys behind the World of Warcraft Classic that gave us some really interesting behind-the-scenes information on how WoW was supposed to develop and how it actually developed, with races that weren't supposed to be there and others that were, as well as an expansion that ultimately failed and was replaced by the Burning Crusade.
That's interesting. You know, the whole troll thing, I didn't know that, but if you've ever seen the original troll model, there are some images still out there. It's the stuff of nightmares. The original troll model was some scary-ass looking shit. I'll try to find it and post it up here at some point, but my God, that thing was horrible looking. So I didn't know trolls were last second.
Burning Crusade was not the original idea. Now, while this is interesting in itself, the main reason I'm covering this is because I think this could actually be quite relevant to what is supposed to come in the future, and could potentially even have something to do with Classic and how that develops further, as this was all obviously meant to be content that was present in World of Warcraft that it never came to be, and they could eventually be trying to get all that back in. Dragonflight is literally the best example of this. All of you know the Dragon Isles, we know by all accounts, were supposed to
Dragon
be
Isles was an original
Classic,
thing.
like the original game, and they ultimately ended up just scrapping them.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of sad that we didn't get something like this. This old god temple looks freaking amazing. They made this back in vanilla, man. This was back on the vanilla servers. Holy crap. Imagine we had actually seen an old god temple that looked like this.
I'm just scrapping them. Originally, they were supposed
really
to be
badass.
like this old god, like the old god place, and now I guess they're just kind of there with a bit of a different storyline, but nonetheless they brought them in nearly 2 decades later. Also, originally Mount Hyjal was built with this crazy remnant of Alchemon that looked quite a bit different, quite a bit more like a forest. Then they decided to scrap it and introduce the
Bodhi, thank you for the follow. Welcome to our Scourge.
Similar thing could be said about the Emerald Dream. We were actually supposed to enter it all the way back in Classic, but it only happened 19 years later, essentially now in 10.2.
Took a while to get to the Emerald Dream.
At least in a few days. However, this additional interview also provides us with more information on how the playable races were supposed to be something different than how they turned out to be. So, while the factions right now all are just loving and beautiful and cooperating, originally
World of
the
Friendcraft.
more evil good extinction was obviously present from the start. Now, of course, don't get me wrong, the Horde was never really the bad guy, while the Alliance was perfect and the good guy, but it was obviously set up as the humans, the more normal looking faction, and the Horde was more geared towards monsters, giant orcs, half-decayed undead. Even the name itself obviously sort of biases it. I mean, Alliance sounds like something a country would create, something organized, while a Horde is usually this giant unorganized group with connotations that it is something more savage. This is also evident just with the architecture. I mean, just compare Orgrimmar and Stormwind even to this day. So one of the original races that was supposed to be playable playable were the ogres.
Man, I can't believe the ogres were supposed to be an original race, and it's literally been a race that's been asked for almost every expansion. Even now, like I see people saying, "Oh, I hope we get ogres announced as a new faction, new playable race." It's crazy that they were gonna add it in vanilla and have not done it ever since. I thought if we were gonna get ogres, I thought it was gonna be during WoD, honestly. And if you guys remember, like High Mall and stuff, we were supposed to go to their city, and that was supposed to be the hub city for the Horde. And then they asked, the Horde were supposed to get the Ogre hub city, and the Alliance was supposed to get Shatterath, and that got scrapped. I don't know why, some dev issues or something. And then we got those shitty little camps that we had during WoD as our hub cities. But yeah, or Kata, could have been Kata, but I really thought WoD we were going to get them, and we just never did. So I don't know if we ever will.
Already. I mean, that is exactly why they have all the animations, the sounds, when compared to regular mobs. I mean, they even have unique dances. And keep in mind, I'm not saying like they put them on a drawing board and scrapped them early on. Like, they were literally building them, like they built them, they had them playable, and now they were stuck with a 6-week deadline for release, and they realized that not only
6
would they need
weeks
to come
out
up with a whole new concept for female ogres, but they would need to make all the unique animations, armor, sounds.
Oh, it was because of the female. Oh, of course. Women ruin everything.
Everything. So what they did instead was they decided to kind of improvise in the last moment. They had already significantly developed the trolls in Strangletorm, very likely with female models already. They were quite fleshed out, so they literally just decided to
bait and
swap
switch to
this
win troll
race last minute. This obviously ended up working well because the Darkspear were obviously developed. I mean, actually, I would say they have stronger main characters than the ogres. I mean, we had the whole Senjin, Vol'jin, Rokan storyline in Warcraft 3. Plus, it ended up kind of balancing up the characters as they wanted someone more lankier for the Horde. I mean, they already had the buff and the gigantic Tauren and the Orcs. The Forsaken were small, but the Trolls were like somewhere around the middle. Now, why I think this is really interesting is that Blizzard obviously intended to make ogres playable, and as I said a million times in the past, they're literally a part of the Horde. I mean, Blizzard could introduce them tomorrow and they wouldn't need a single justification. Now, with the same bulky and lanky balancing out talk, originally in Classic the Pandaren were supposed to be an Alliance race, the big bulky monster bear looking Pandaren. He doesn't exactly say who replaced.
Yeah, see, I think this is a perfect example of like WoW's art direction recently and how things have gone. This was supposed to be like the muscular, bulky, badass Pandaren we you know, originally were gonna get.
He doesn't exactly say,
and then we got the fluff boy marshmallow Pandaren.
Say who replaced him, but personally, I think it is the gnomes. I mean,
by the way, Mists of Pandaria, highly underrated. I still think it's one of the better expansions. I actually liked Mists.
Humans and night elves are really well developed in the game with quite a bit of a storyline, but the gnomes barely got anything back in Warcraft 3. I mean, in fact, the Pandaren were more developed in Warcraft 3. Plus, they could expand why they didn't really go through all that much effort to build Gnomeregan originally, like why they didn't have their own city. The only thing that doesn't make too much sense is like why the Pandaren would join the Alliance, as they seemed closer to the Horde back in Warcraft 3. However, as we know, that never actually happened. But this isn't really news. Like, we know that this was a Pandaren NPC back in the day that existed, and they planned to do something, and ultimately they did. They became a neutral race. However, the most interesting thing this interview mentions is the fact that Blizzard literally started building an entire expansion, and then they decided to scrap it in development because they couldn't figure out how to make it work from the technical side. So, as the developer says, the original plan for the first expansion after Classic was a so-called South Seas expansion. I don't think they really had a concrete name for this. This was literally going to be a pirate expansion. It was supposed to be water-based. They have pirate hubs that you would go to. We would be going to Naziatar, probably with heavy Naga involvement as well. The only reason they decided not to...
This could have been cool. I mean, we're not getting a pirate expansion, you know, from BlizzCon today. That's obvious now, but I think this could have been really cool, and I do hope one day we get some kind of Sailing the Open Seas expansion where you get like dynamic sailing on the ocean, like we got dynamic flying, you know, with dragon riding. I do hope we get that, and I've always said it. I've said it for quite a while now, that I think like a ship, customizable ship where like you can customize everything inside could be the answer to player housing that people have been wanting for a long time.
Actually go with this is because they couldn't figure out
I don't want Bobby just to have a boat. I want a boat too.
Which is obviously not a problem at the present day. Additionally, they also released this really interesting internal map that they use for development, which kind of shows you how Azeroth was actually supposed to look. I mean, quite a bit different than today, with the Dragon Isles.
The Dragon Isles are actually
much smaller. The main issue with this map was that the lore was changing faster than they could actually update it, so that ended up being quite a bit of a problem. Now, obviously, we're going to know within like a day what will happen with retail and classic, but I do feel like this is a really interesting way to look at it, as keep in mind, most of these things were actually added to the game. It just took a little more time. We eventually got Zendalot.
Wait, what was that? The dreaming? Hold on. What the hell was that? The dreaming via world trees. Okay, so I'm guessing that's like the Emerald Dream. Outland via Dark Portal. Okay, so these are two lands that aren't shown on here. What the hell? Furbog Totem? There's supposed to be like an island for just for Furbogs or something? Black Fathom Deeps. This is interesting to look at. Man, Kalimdor looks like a kidney. That's kind of weird. Old Caverns of Time. So that was always meant to be there. Zandalar is just a tiny little place. What, Karazhan? Yeah, that turned out to be right. All that Tolvaret. Yeah, and the Dragon Isles are attached up here. That's interesting. What the heck? Okay.
And we eventually got Zendalot, we now got the Dragon Isles, we got Naziatar, we got the Pandaren, we got Mount Hyjal, we got the Emerald Dream. Essentially, almost all of these originally classic features eventually made their way into the game, albeit heavily modified, all apart from two things. Pirates and the Ogres. Yeah. Now, realistically with Pirates, I mean, you can say they kind of added them. I mean, BFA was essentially a sea-based expansion where we got Naziatar.
It was. I wish it was more, though.
Zandalar. We had the island expeditions, we had the ships. So you could say that ultimately this original concept made it to retail. However, what we never got until this point is the Ogres. They obviously made the Pandaren that were planned, but Ogres never made it, which never really made all that
crazy, man.
I mean, they got so many model updates over the years, so much new lore.
They're so requested.
They're still a part of the Horde, and they're still not playable up to this day, which I think could mean we could be seeing them soon in some way, shape, or form. You also might be watching this video after the BlizzCon announcement, but I do think this interview has potential to reveal what Blizzard might want to bring back to the game, either classic or retail that they never wanted to, especially now with Chris Metzen back, as he was obviously one of the lead guys back in the day.
He is back, that's right.
They obviously have the water technology. They barely have any technological limitations. I mean, they added Zeralek Caverns, which was quite a new thing they were never able to actually accomplish in the past. The only thing they need to add right now are the Ogres. Thank you for watching. Check out Iridicon Sister and our possible return to Northrend in 10.2.5 by clicking on the screen, and check out my video on Ancient Greek colonies.
Man, it's crazy.
Also click on the screen as well. See you next time.
Crazy that the Ogres were supposed to be an original race and literally canceled 6 weeks before because of the female models and a few other things they had to get done. Wow. So then they added trolls in. Interesting. We got trolled.